Jacob Miles. I am affectionately known as the Prince of Play. And I've been in the toy business since 1975. My background's engineering. I began at Kenner and worked at Kenner for 10 years before going to Tonka and working at Tonka, doing some of the same licensing deals and so forth at Tonka that we did at Kenner. Then with Sega and Bandai, and then on to Hasbro. While I was at Tonka, we bought Kenner, and so I went from being an engineer coming in the door.
Hey everyone, Sean Nias, owner of Dallas Vintage Toys. We have a special guest that kind of made my childhood, Mr. Jacob Miles, that worked at Hasbro, and you were the vice president, correct?
Yes, Yeah, I've been in the toy industry since 1975. Started as an engineer at Kenner Toys. We were located at 912 Sycamore before moving into the big Kroger building downtown. Man, the toy industry in those days.
I can only imagine.
It was a lot different, man. A lot different than today. In those days, the senior executives had bars in their office. So you could drink at the parties in the office, and things like that. So things were very, very different. Almost I call it the end of
it's
the.
It's kind of like the Charlie Weaver bartender. My father-in-law had one of those when he was a kid. So the toy would actually make drinks or whatever
and stuff
kids.
like that. But really pushing the envelope. But Kenner started out as a soap company, competing with Procter & Gamble, located across the street from them, and on Kenner Street, and made the soap gun, bubble gum, and then from there they evolved. But at that time, our big thing was $6 Million Man. $6 Million Man, followed by Bionic Woman, and when we licensed that deal, it was a big deal because although licensing had been done before, it hadn't been done on the scale that we were doing it at Kenner, and we took that licensing ball and ran with it. We did obviously $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman. We were doing Snoopy at the time. We did the Snoopy toothbrush. We were doing Spirograph. We were doing Play-Doh. Obviously, if you kind of see a trend there, Play-Doh obviously was dough, flour and dough. Easy Bake Oven at that time, that was food based.
We have one in the back that's still factory sealed.
Yeah. But those were our big toys at that time. And Baby Alive, the first doll ever done from an engineering standpoint with self-skinning foam. And just figuring out, working with our chemists, that self-skinning foam thing was, to me, mind-blowing as a young engineer, trying to figure those kind of things out. But then, one day, I'm in the office working, and I get called downstairs, and I go downstairs, and there's by Bernie Loomis, and I get downstairs, and there's this skinny guy and his lawyer and a couple members of my team, and that guy was George Lucas. And at that time, George had a couple roommates. He had a script. And Bernie says, "Hey, I want you guys to look at this and see if we can make it toyetic." And he used a toyetic word. He says, "Make things. Can you turn it into a toy? Can you have play value and so forth?" So we sat there and went through it, and none of us knew it was going to be what it is today. But that became the beginning of Star Wars. In toys, because we signed the deal for the toy rights to fund the initial movie, which had been being turned down all around Hollywood. So that began the Star Wars era, and obviously the movie then went into production and so forth, but we couldn't get the toys made in time, so that's where we sold the empty boxes, because they came to me, and I was engineering, manufacturing, saying, we got to get toys, the movie's coming. I said, it's not going to happen. We can't build tooling that fast, because that's your long lead on injection molding in action figures. And so Bernie came up with the idea, we'll put an IOU in a box, and we'll sell
early
that.
bird certificate. You know what's funny is that we actually had a client, he sold some stuff. He actually worked for Bernie, and he brought in some t-shirts and then the jewelry. So this was before the toys, and he had some puzzles. So he told us the story that he would have to go, city by city, not like the Sears or stuff like that. He would go to these big box stores back in the day and try to pitch it. Then if they declined it, he'd go to the next one, and so on. Then he told his wife, he's like, this Star Wars crap is never going to take off, so he quit. And then he came in. I mean, it was still in the original shipper box, the gray, the jewelry thing, and it was just funny that you brought up Bernie, and then that story that he told us, and everything was like still factory sold, and those were the samples that he would take to try to get it in before the toys came to be. What you were just saying.
Well, the FCC did not like that. FTC, Federal Trade Commission. So they outlawed that after we did it. But the sell-in was successful, so we sold empty boxes, which is legendary now. And then, of course, I believe that also kind of built some of the hype for Star Wars, coming into play. But Star Wars was obviously a big thing for us, and this was constantly chasing it, never catching up with the demand.
Did y'all think it was going to be as big as it was, or when you started seeing lines at the theater?
We did not. When we hit $200 million in sales for Star Wars, we did a sheet that we gave out to all the team members that celebrating this 200 million in sales, and had a party and all this stuff. We thought that was the top.
And was that the first year?
That was the middle of the second year when we hit the 200 million in sales, and because we really didn't have the first year wasn't a full year. Well, it was huge. It just took off from there. But Star Wars also, with $6 Million Man in Star Wars, told us that this licensing thing is the way to go. So we followed that up with a deal with American Greetings, where we did Strawberry Shortcake, and then we did Care Bears, and Strawberry Shortcake was a mess, needless to say. We were manufacturing back then in those early days. We were still manufacturing a lot in the United States. And our factory outside Cincinnati, we were doing all the testing and things like that, working with the fragrance manufacturer to try and make the fragrance work with injection molding. And of course, injection molding, plastic gets hot. So the fragrance was burning up, so it'd be burnt strawberries, or burnt orange.
From
Oh yeah, it did not smell good. And the workers were complaining, I'm getting a headache, from all this stuff. So we had to try and figure that out. We did get the formula and the fragrance figured out. It took us about 3 to 6 months, but we got it all figured out. And then you always knew what was running when you visit the factory. Strawberry day, lemon day. You could always tell before you hit that factory that fragrance was coming out at you. But so again, you look at the trend at Kenner and you say, well, there's fragrances, there's flour, there's baking stuff. and then of course then came Stretch Armstrong with corn syrup, inside of essentially what started with a latex glove. Somebody playing with a latex glove, putting water in it and they're stretching it and playing with it, and somebody said, we could make a toy out of
Sounds
that.
like y'all just went down the street to the bakery and like, I got some ideas for you.
Yeah, and so we used to get, that was a mess as well, because you had to maintain the syrup at a certain percent solids and seal it and not let any air in, so it doesn't crystallize. Yeah, and so you can imagine we had to design all the equipment, engineering, the tooling, and everything to try and figure that out. Another trial and error. That one took us over a year to perfect that one. And of course, you come in the next day, there's rats and mice everywhere stuck in the syrup. Because it drew them.
You're like, rat traps now. No, back to Stretch Armstrong.
But we finally got that figured out, and Stretch Armstrong was a big success for us. I think it got to 100 million in its second year. So in the toy industry, we looked at over 200 ideas a year to get 5 to go to market with, of which 2 would last more than 2 years.
So did they give you all like deadlines? Because some of this you're saying it took 3 to 6 months or about a year to perfect.
Yep. The deadlines and that you had was based upon the potential of the revenue. You know what I mean? So you had almost had like a formula. We had we call them mid, max for everything that we looked at. What is the minimum we think we can do? What is the mid? And then what's the max? And you tool to the max, plan to the mid. And so if those numbers were huge based on testing, then you got much longer runway to figure it out. If the numbers were lower, you got a shorter runway to figure it out. So but a lot went into thinking about toys and looking at all the ideas that come in every year and figuring out what to go forward with. And at Kenner, we were just very, very, very sensitive to parents and to being a family-based company. But to be truthful, we went off whack a little bit, got out of character, a lot of fighting internally in our licensing when we decided to do the Alien. When we were doing the licensing, they come in and we say, okay, we're going to do the Alien. And
because kids love it.
Yeah, Alien was not a kid movie. We got bombarded by the parents, the mom saying, that thing's scary. That's
glows in the dark. The inner teeth coming out.
Oh yeah, it was scary. Kids loved it though, But again, we were known for our mechanisms, our engineering, our action figures always had action, real action, and no one else in the toy industry was doing that level of detail in their action figures, or the level of flexibility and arms moving. Yeah, arms moving and all kinds of things. And so with the Alien, it was, how do we do this thing? So we got to have the teeth and the jaws coming out. It's got to glow in the dark. And all of this type of stuff. It's got to be scary. And we almost shut it down at least 2 or 3 times because of the backlash we were getting from the moms. But we stuck with it. And one of my memories, even now today, I remember going back to my mom's house. I had a couple of them in the basement. And I said, Mom, I couldn't find, Mom, where's my aliens? She said, I went down there to do laundry one night, and they were sitting there glowing. I took a broom and I beat them and I threw them in the trash.
My life's work.
Right. She hated those things. So that is a direct example of what the moms were feeling about the Alien when we did that one. But very exciting product, and again spoke to the engineering behind our products, and also the licensing leadership that Kenner was exhibiting at that time. Obviously, Star Wars is legendary, and you know, I remember my first time going out to the ranch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you really get the feeling of, you know, wow, this is huge. You know, and I had been to, you know, to Disney, the Imaginarium, you know, place, and signed the book and all that stuff from the different stuff I've worked on. I didn't know Walt Disney, but I met George Lucas, so that was made it very, very different. But one of the things we were working on at Kenner that we were producing in the U.S. was the carrying cases for the initial Star Wars figures. We did the Darth Vader, obviously, and then we did the C-3PO. And so I would ask the question early on. I said, why'd you make the bad guy black? You know, now you have to understand the context here. That we're in 1975. I'm a young engineer at the company. I'm the only black guy in the room, the only black guy in the engineering department. You know, so so you know, I mean, it was just a fun question. And they said, but Jake, I made the stormtroopers white. you know, and they're bad. You know, and so as we're getting to one of the production meetings, manufacturing meetings at the plant one day, the guys come in and go, okay, well, before we start the meeting, Jake, we got something for you. And they brought out the carrying case Darth Vader bust, and it was white. So I have the only white Darth Vader in the world. Now, it's actually translucent, mm-hmm. because when you're clearing the mold and getting ready for your production, you just run until you get you get the right temperature, get everything right. And this was right at the end when everything's perfect. So it's a perfect carrying case. It's translucent but reads as white. So I have the only one in the world. But that to me is one of my most memorable moments and one of my most prized collections, because obviously I'm a toy collector. I love collecting. My friend here loves collecting. That's what we do, you know. And my wife asks me, when are you going to stop playing with toys? And I said, why would anyone ever stop playing with toys?
It's the cool thing to do
It's
now.
the cool thing to do. And I said, if anything, I think people should play with toys more.
Put that iPad down.
Pick up a toy. You know, it's nostalgic when you go back and look at it. There are snapshots in time. And as we always said at Kenner, toys are no more than a reflection of life. And you can exaggerate it, you can simplify it, you know, but that's what they are. And so when you look at, like you said, whether it's the Star Wars and the stories, you know, those are real life stories. That's why they resonate with people. You know, when we look at with Kenner, you know, we looked at life and said, okay, well, what are people into? What are they doing? Obviously, sports are big. That led to, you know, our entire sports line. You know, then we had superpowers, of course, which is the Superman and Batman and Green Lantern and all of those as well. And that was a fun line. But that licensing is what propelled Kenner to piggyback on its basic toys into the juggernaut that it became, to the point where obviously it led to one acquisition after another, and then Tonka acquiring Kenner, and then Hasbro acquiring Tonka, and I was fortunate enough to live through all of that.
Also picked up superpowers right when Star Wars was dying off, and was that George's say, like, we're not doing any more movies and let's put this to rest?
He never really said he wasn't doing anymore. He said, I'm not doing any more right now.
Okay.
You know, and so we had the perpetual rights. So the rights weren't. We knew it wasn't going away. Mm-hmm. And so, but what he did do, he switched to the Ewoks, mm-hmm. you know, and the cartoons, you know, and so it stayed around. It just was in the other form of media, and so those didn't drive toy sales mm-hmm. like, you know, the blockbuster movie drives toy sales, you know, but at the same time it kept it on the radar, you know, and at that same time nurtured a younger group of kids, you know.
And some say that like the '84 line's kind of like the best sculpts that y'all did, and kind of like superpowers. It's like last series. It seems like it's always y'all have honed in on everything, and it's like the last year always seems to be like the best year, and then
before it drops off. And that's the case, because every year you have to improve upon the previous year from an action standpoint, from a feature standpoint. It has to get better every year. And then when the end comes, in most toys, the end comes suddenly.
It's like Star Wars, y'all had about 7 or 8 years, and then move on to the next license.
Yeah, I mean, it comes suddenly. I mean, it's like someone just turned off the faucet, and usually it's because another blockbuster movie came or whatever it is, and if you're not trend forward and looking at what's coming and what's happening, then you miss out. Kenner became very good at being trend forward. And at the same time, they were trying to mix in their own IP in properties like m.a.s.k.
Mm-hmm. You know, I grew up with that.
Yeah, you know, and that was the whole thing behind m.a.s.k. And Jake and m.a.s.k. is named after me in that whole series. But m.a.s.k. was we did a cartoon, and we did the whole thing, but it was a Kenner-owned property. And I expect we'll see m.a.s.k. again.
Good. Well, I had an awesome time with Jacob Miles. He's kind of one of my heroes that invented and did some of the toys that I grew up with. He has a massive resume from all the awesome toy companies, as you heard him say, that he worked with, and went all the way up to being the vice president of Hasbro. It's just super awesome. I got goosebumps just talking or just listening to him, and this is just the beginning, and we're gonna deep dive into several other toy lines and more stories, and I can't wait to just hear more stuff that he worked on, and it's just, I'm kind of speechless, but stay tuned for more awesome correspondence with the man, the myth, the legend, Jacob Miles.
Today I am launching a new media franchise called the Controllers, which is kind of bringing together the Star Wars and all the things that I've worked on in the past. I'm kind of bringing into this media franchise in toy line. I am the co-host and founder of the Exec Collect show, which is about executives, tech executives, entrepreneurs, and so forth, who collect, and huge growing industry. You can visit and check it out at execscollect.com. And my co-host is Fanny Dunnigan, and we're very excited about it. We're very excited about the show, everything that we do, because I found my brother here.